Harris,
and we are here today on our Magicticity series to talk about something very important, dialogue openers.
Yes. So a lot of clients will say to me, I go into a meeting and I don't know how to learn the most amount from the other person, rather than coming in and just, a client said this expression to me today, vomiting all over the page.
Oh my goodness.
Which I love,
Yes.
but it's very graphic.
Yes.
But it's like, how do you not get so caught up in your own presentation that you forget that the other person really is most important in a meeting?
And how do you actually make that person important in the meeting
And feel comfortable.
relevant,
Yeah.
and include them in what you're presenting?
And actually, sometimes you shouldn't even present. Sometimes that's the least important thing. So here's what we suggest. We have a dialogue opener that has 3 distinct parts. It has a preparation part, a readiness part. It has number 2, an invitation, and in this order, I feel is very effective. And then number 3, and so important, is a benefit. So the readiness part is your preparation and acknowledging that you've prepared for the client. So it might go something like this. We spoke on the phone yesterday and you asked me to come in and present to you today, and I've prepared materials and I am ready to do that. Here's part number 2 is the invitation. Before I say anything more though, I'd like to check in with you and see what might have changed for you since we spoke yesterday, and see what is uppermost in your mind right now. And here's the benefit, because I want to make sure that we make the best use of your time in this meeting. And then you just have to stop.
Exactly. And also, these 3 elements you can have in your notes as speaker notes in your presentation.
Yeah.
As part of your agenda, because you don't want to forget, right? And you can get caught up in the middle of the saying hello and what people call breaking the ice, if that's the case, or as you're walking in and introducing people and you sit down and maybe someone from your team thinks that they're going too fast. I mean, the time is going very fast and they want to start and get right away.
They want
into
to
it.
launch.
Exactly, they want to launch. But if you prepare and let them know that this is what you're going to be doing when the meeting starts,
very important.
Then everyone is on the same page.
Very important.
So this way you have much more time to really connect initially, feel the room, get a sense of maybe your client is in a really great mood, maybe they had a not so great morning, so you want to recalibrate yourself. And you give an opportunity for the people that are with you, that are presenting, to also take that in.
And so what you're saying in effect is, could you please lay your cards on the table first? You don't want that person to feel that it's an inquisition or you're asking a great deal of them. So if you say, I just want to check in and see what your thinking is, what your priorities are, what your perspective is. And as you're saying, you might learn something that you didn't expect as well. Right. You might hear that they had a bad day that morning and that they aren't really in a mood to be receptive at that point. Or that they might want to focus on one thing rather than another.
Yes, and I think that focusing is really important, because as you're checking in, as you're opening, you are confirming that what you're bringing that morning or that day is exactly what they're looking to hear. So if you confirm that, then everyone is again on the same page.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I like your point very much about making sure that your team members know that you're going to do this, because otherwise you might have a team member jumping into the presentation.
I've had that.
Oh yeah,
yes.
And it's kind of awkward because you have one expectation of the meeting and then your team member has another. And yet you want to make sure that you're coming across as a team, which is hard to do if you have different agendas. Yes. So preparation and preparing your team to know what to expect is very important. The other thing about this, and we can go into so many aspects of this, is to just make sure so that it's that form of preparation, and it's also what happens if somebody else gets off track. How do you handle that?
Exactly.
Agreeing on that together. So some of these are things that we'll work with, we'll talk to you about in later webcasts and podcasts, because they can be very complex.
Yes, and even if you agreed initially or before going into the meeting that you were going to do the dialogue opener,
Yeah.
and the person forgets and they just jump in, you can always wait for a pause and then do the dialogue opener there.
That's exactly right. They're not just for the very beginning of the meeting. And so a dialogue opener that might take place partway through the meeting would maybe sound a little different. What you might say is, well, we've just given you some information that we find to be very exciting. Wanted to check in with you and see what your thoughts are, because I want to make sure that we address what's most important to you. And so it's an interim or a transitional opener.
Yes.
You can also do them as transitions.
Yes. So would you like to hear more about this, or is there anything that you'd like to discuss now?
Yeah, what would you like to discuss?
Exactly.
And just make sure that you're not sneaking in closed probes. So if you say, is there anything that begs a yes or no, but what would you like to discuss now? Then here's the key, and again, something for another webcast or podcast, is active listening.
Yes.
And what do you do with the information? So sometimes what people will start talking back to you, and then you say, great, I've seen this so many times with my clients. Great, let me get to page 2. And it's so dismissive, and they think that they've heard and they've absorbed, but the client gets a totally different impression. It sounds like you've just said, oh, talk to me. Okay, I've satisfied, I've ticked off that box. I just really want to get back to my presentation.
Exactly.
So we should talk about in another webcast some of the verbal signposts for active listening.
Yes, because the most important thing in a meeting is it's not to get the information that you come to deliver, but it's to learn about your client, it's to connect.
Yeah.
These are the most important parts,
Yeah.
because if you want to get 3 things into the meeting, you can start even at the beginning telling them what the message is. What are the 3 things you want them to take away? You can repeat it at the end, but in the middle of the meeting, the best outcome is if you have a dialogue, if you connect more, and if you learn.
Yeah.
So the only way to learn is to listen.
Yeah, exactly. So how can people be in touch with us?
Through contact@magicticity.com, leaving comments on our podcasts, webcasts, and also if you'd like to work with us directly, just let us know.
Yep. Thank you so much for watching or for listening, and please look for our articles as well.
Thank you.